Service revenue in SaaS. What types of services are there? Which are best? How do you make the most money? Can you turn some of it into ARR? So I design services and service concepts for a lot of my SaaS customers, and it is a natural extension of designing the software packaging to also design service packaging. So I use the framework that I'm going to show you in a minute to design these services and to make some of the choices that we have to make when designing the services. And I just wanted to share it with you in case you are about to design some of the services that you have in your SaaS business. You can run these in a lot of different ways, but I think that there are 7 different types of services in SaaS. And actually you could say, well, these would also exist outside of SaaS, but I'm just focused on SaaS, but if you can use it somewhere else, up to you. If you have a service-heavy business, so you're making, let's say, 5 million of ARR and 5 million of service revenue, you're probably using a few of these. And services can be used as professional services, ongoing while you serve the customer. They can be onboarding, they can be offboarding, and building bespoke developments and so forth. So let's break down how they are different on some of the, let's say, key metrics or parameters from a business perspective. So I have chosen 3 here, which I think are the most important ones, and I'm going to sort of go through them one by one. So the first is license versus usage, meaning do I pay for a right to use or do I pay for what I use? So time and material is clearly usage. I spend 1 hour, I pay for 1 hour. Scoped, clearly usage. Fixed is actually, you can say that it is a usage-based in the sense that I say how many hours I have, but I then have the risk of delivering it more or less. So it is still a usage-based price. I have to ask for it, you scope it, it's a fixed price, I say yes, and then we run. So it's not something that I can charge you on a recurrent basis in a license format. Prepaid, also usage. Credits is now a license. Capacity, now a license. Concept, now a license. These 3 are also the ones that you can book as ARR, and I've done this for these 3 both in GAAP accounting, General Accepted Accounting Principle, and in the European IFRS accounting framework. So the idea is that you have on contract a contractual right to invoice or bill the customer on a recurring basis for these services until unsubscribed or canceled in some way. So usage-based, license-based, hence ARR. Now, from a cash flow perspective, do you get the money before or after you perform the service? Time and material will usually be after. Scoped can actually be both. So usually you'll do some sort of a 50-50 on this. Fixed can very often be before, but also sometimes a 50-50, but let's just say before. Prepaid, before. Credits, before. Capacity, before. Concept, before. So a lot of people start out here before they have gotten experience in delivering professional services to their accounts, which is, so it's usage-based. They usually get paid after they actually have the cost. Usually skilled people have high costs, and since I don't have a lot of ability to plan for how much services I sell, because I don't have a lot of volume yet, then this actually becomes a real liquidity and cash drain and P&L drain on a lot of these companies, which makes it really hard to get professional service concepts off the ground. So I usually say, let's just, as far as we can, just skip this step and just get straight into either credits or prepaid at the very least, and to the extent that we can deliver service concepts such as premium support, managed services, and so forth. Input-output. So this has to do with whether or not the customer realistically pays for the effort or the time you spend, or if they pay for the output that you create. If you have an input-based model, you say you have the risk, but you also have a very limited return. So you can't make exceptional margins on the professional services. So this would be input-based. I input 1 hour and I get to bill 1 hour. Scoped, the same. Fixed, well, it's still input-based because you have to actually do the scoping and it has to be relatively correct. So it isn't like you can get a very, very large leverage on the scoped hours because your negotiation model and the way you sell it is on an hourly basis. But let's say it's input with a very small output element here. Prepaid, input, credits, input, capacity, still input, right? You have to build the team that you sell to people. You might be able to leverage a little bit extra, but essentially they're still paying for input. And then the only way that you can actually create really, really good margins in services for SaaS companies is through service concepts. So this is why we actually spend a lot of time, at least in my projects with my clients, to build these things, to say, well, what is it where we can stop talking about how much time we spend and start talking about what it is that we're doing for you with the services, and then agree on a delivery format and an output for those services, and then how much it should cost. And then it's up to us as the vendor to then do that in an effective form with, let's say, the least amount of time and effort, but which minimally meets your requirements for this. So I would say that everything that we can conceivably package as service concepts, let's do that. And then everything else that we can get into either credits or capacity model, let's do that. Because of the recurring nature, it makes it very, very predictable. And then we go up the list. So good, bad, if you want sort of the really quick version here. Good, bad. So let's throw a few concepts into this, like onboarding, for example. So how should onboarding be done? Because we have another angle to this, which is, well, where's the risk to the customer? How do you do this? I would say first is that, well, you should probably charge for your onboarding, because you could invent sort of an 8th category here, which is just to say, well, all the free stuff that you do for customers, right? So this is not this, not this, and not this, because you do not get paid, but you still do the service. So if you have free stuff that you do for your customers, such as, let's say, very heavy onboarding or training for their employees, or you do a lot of actual support tasks or configurations of their systems and so forth, I think this can be necessary in the beginning when you're still holding together your software solution with, chewing gum and duct tape. The first one usually is onboarding. And from a customer perspective, I think that onboarding is way best done as a concept, saying, well, you have a license that will cost you 100 in year 1, and onboarding is 30, whatever it is. Usually from 0 to 25, let's say % of the first year's license, everybody will accept the onboarding charge. From 25 to 50%, they will accept it, but they would want to know what is involved. From, let's say, 50 plus, it becomes a real sale and they want to know what they get for what they're paying for. But in the lower end, sort of, let's say below 50% of the first year's license, you can usually just place onboarding here as a service concept, meaning we will do it. You have to pay us when you sign up for it. And that is just how it goes. It's not, you can't charge for onboarding more than once. So it's not a recurring revenue, but it is still a license. It is a right to onboard. This is how I usually think about service concepts in SaaS. Let's say 7 categories that I use to figure out what my clients are currently doing. It's a really easy way to figure out, well, if we want to move services to ARR, we have to move it down here. If we want to improve their cash flow, we have to do it here. If we want to improve their margins, we have to look at what they're doing here, and then we can work this service concepts accordingly. So I hope it's helpful, and good luck with it.